Welcome to the Mama Time podcast, where we dive into all things wellness to support and empower you on your journey through pregnancy and motherhood. I'm Charlotte, your host, a proud mama of 3 and a pre- and postnatal yoga teacher. My mission is simple, to help mothers like you feel your best. In this podcast, I'll share practical tools, heartfelt stories, and nurturing practices to help you reconnect with yourself through the ever-changing seasons of motherhood. Because while you're busy caring for everyone else, I'm here to remind you of something so important. You matter too. You are worthy of prioritizing your well-being, and when you do, it creates a ripple effect that transforms not just your life, but the lives of those around you. Along with sharing my own experiences and resources, I'll be chatting with inspiring fellow mamas who are passionate about supporting other women. Together, we'll have honest, heart-centered conversations about their journeys and the transformative tools they rely on to thrive in motherhood so you can thrive too. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into today's episode. Are you ready? Hello, thank you for joining me today. This is our very first episode with a guest, so I'm so excited that you're here. We have Sam from Mothering by Design. She is a human design expert for parenting, and she specifically focuses on human design for mothers. And I am so excited for you to hear this conversation. We got into, her journey to motherhood and what led her to human design as a resource that she focuses on for her own life and now shares with other mothers so that they can have the same benefits that she has from it, because it is an absolute game changer. If you've never heard of human design, she's going to get into all that as well. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, we'll get there. And even if you've heard of human design before, she has so many incredible insights that she shares in this. And I can't wait for you guys to listen to this conversation. You're going to get so much out of it. So enjoy. Welcome, Sam, to Mama Time. I'm so excited to have you join me today. I know our listeners are in for such a treat. If they've heard about human design, if they haven't heard about human design, I'm sure they're going to get so much out of this. So let's get started. Let's get straight into it. I want to get all into human design, of course. But before we get there, I just want to hear from you, your experience. What was your journey into motherhood like? What were your pregnancies like?
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm so grateful to be here. So my journey into motherhood was it was interesting. So my first child was unexpected. Well, both my kids were unexpected, but my first child, I had a fairly good pregnancy. I really wanted a natural birth. I really wanted a all of the things.
Yeah.
I had a pretty decent pregnancy with him. It ended up getting to that point of having him, and I had a lot of false labor, or I had what do they call it?
Braxton Hicks.
Well, it started really early, so I had for probably like 6 weeks. I had all of the symptoms coming up. Anyway, so it was stop-start. I ended up having a hospital birth, which is what I had planned, but I got there, I couldn't have a water birth, so it kind of just turned into that spiral. And I ended up having a vacuum extraction and just all of the things that I had not hoped for my first birth. And I think, like many women, that, that trauma or that disappointment or that grief of your birth, or the one that you wanted, travels into your journey as a mother. So when I fell pregnant with my daughter, I knew that I wanted something completely different to that experience. At the time, my dad was sick, so we were staying at my parents' property, helping out with the home. And we had this beautiful home. It was like basically a rainforest home, and I was able to have that home birth that I really did wish for the first time around. And basically I got to have that experience that I wanted the first time around. It was absolutely everything that I dreamed of. It was nighttime. It was quick. It was like 2 or 3 hours.
That sounds like a dream.
It was just like, I always look back to that. I've got shivers now thinking about it, how beautiful that experience was. There was a separate dwelling. So my family was upstairs. I had my son there. I had a water birth, and it was just the most beautiful experience. So I was definitely challenged by motherhood with my first child, with all of the interventions and how that, impacts your journey. And then my second time around was completely different. So,
what's the age difference between your kids? Like, how long between births?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. So you had time in between.
Yes. So in between that, I did have a miscarriage, but the following month, I had fallen pregnant with my daughter, and was incredible. Everything, the whole experience was just so incredible.
That sounds so healing.
Yes.
And what was your postpartum experience like for both of them? I know you mentioned, like, with your son, those interventions kind of carried into motherhood. How was it different for the different kids?
So for my first, I had an episiotomy. So that recovery was intense. I didn't know about postpartum. I had focused so much about what I wanted my birth to look like.
Yes. I feel like that's so common. It's so common. And then you're like, wait, this is actually a much bigger piece of the puzzle that I've completely ignored.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
I did the same thing.
Absolutely. And we put so much pressure on ourselves and so much focus on the actual birth, where we don't have a lot of control over that. However, we do have control over the postpartum. So my son's experience was very intense. I was lost. It was, it was hard. And so from that experience, I prioritized my daughter's postpartum. I knew I wasn't getting out of bed for 6 weeks. I was like really taking it seriously. I did the first 40 days. I did my own placenta into capsules, and I just made sure I was like, my nutrients were there. I rested. I had the support. I had support with my son. I just really focused on making sure that my health was, how it should be. And I think the beautiful birth obviously helps your postpartum as well. No drugs, no nothing, no intervention. Really, it really does change your experience.
Oh, that's amazing. That sounds, you just don't know the first time, do you? And I see some women though that do prioritize that. And I'm like, oh, you've got it down. You don't have to learn the hard way like so many of us do. But yeah, it sounds like you got there with your second, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
And then at what point, I want to ask how you got into human design, because that's, what we're going to talk about a lot today. But before we do, can you give us a little bit of a breakdown if, someone hasn't heard anything about human design before? How would you describe it?
So human design, I describe it as basically your blueprint for life. So it is a map where it gets to show you how you're here to thrive, how you can access the best version of yourself, how you can feel more grounded, your true, like the sense of who you really are here to be in the world. So basically if we look at ourselves as an onion, you're peeling back the layers of conditioning. You're disconnecting from the stories that, you've been told you should live, the way that you should live your life, who you should be in the world. And you really just come back to this one little blueprint or map of like, nope, this is how you're here to thrive. This is how you're here to operate. And what happens when we're operating like that is a lot more opportunity comes to you. You feel a lot more ease in your life, flow in your life, and things feel better, things feel more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so how did you get into human design? Is it something you knew about before you had your children or after you had children?
I didn't know about it with my first child, got into it. I was doing, just before I had my daughter, my second child, I was doing a program, and it came up in that program. And at the time I didn't resonate with it, or I didn't dive into it. And then it came up again in another program that I was doing. And I was like, this is really interesting. And I'm a manifestor energy type, which is, we'll talk about that later. But it's for when I first understood that about myself, I was like, holy, like, this is so cool. Like, I finally felt seen for the first time in my life. So
that's how I describe it as well. When I did my reading with you, I was like, I feel so seen. Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
Absolutely. And so many people do, we live our life. We go through life feeling like, I don't know who I am. Why am I doing this? This is wrong. I shouldn't be doing that. I should be doing something this way. Comparing. And that is massive for motherhood, you know? And I think
Mm.
with my first journey with my son, I compared myself so much. And I found myself in burnout. I found myself going, why can't I do all the other, like do all the things that other people can do? I thought I was the worst mom. Like I felt like I wasn't coping. And then when I understood human design, I was like, I'm not here to do what they're doing. I'm not here to show up the way that someone else is showing up. So when I understood that, I was like, okay, I don't have to operate like that. I need to really focus on my energy and how I can best show up for my kids and show up for myself in the way that's aligned for me.
Yeah. And so you found that when you were pregnant with your daughter, or before you had your daughter?
Just before I had my daughter. So I dived into it a little bit for myself, and then I fell in love with it. And then I dived in further and further. I then decided to study it. So I am certified in it. And then I just realized how I could apply it to my kids and how powerful it was, knowing specifically for me as a manifestor how much I grew up out of alignment and, you know, really disconnected from who I was, hating who I was because I just felt so different. And then understanding how I could really change this for my kids and really raise them in a way that supported who they were, allowed them to be themselves, loved themselves for who they were, and really just create that sense of self-awareness for them, you know, growing up and into the crazy world that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is so different. Before we get too much more into human design, we'll get more into human design, but like how to apply it. What do you think are the most important things to go over? Like if somebody, well, first off, how can someone find their own reading? Like where do you recommend that they go? I'll link it in the show notes.
The best website is www.myhumandesign.com. It just offers you a lot more details into your chart. This is free as well. And the details that you will need is your birth date, your time of birth, exact time of birth, and your place of birth. So your suburb, your city. It doesn't have to be necessarily exact. However, the time does need to be exact because some things change down to the minute.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so that's how someone can find theirs. Can we do a bit of an overview around like the different types or profiles or whatever you think is like high level, what someone needs to know first off to kind of get the most out of it?
So the first thing that we would look at is your energy type. So I always like to describe the energy type like your zodiac sign. You know, everybody falls into one of these. Everyone's familiar with that. So there are 5 different energy types. There is the generator, which is basically like the Energizer Bunny of the world. They're here to, get things done. The manifesting generator, which is the creative. They are also very energetic, but they are here to skip steps. They're here to move really, really fast. They can, multitask. They can skip from one thing to the next really, really easily. Then there is the manifester. So they have a little bit less energy. Their energy works in spurts. Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off. They're really like the initiators of the world. They thrive on freedom. They hate being told what to do. They are the rebels of the world. And then there's projectors. Projectors they are one of the types that really need to be mindful of their physical energy because they can get burnt out really easily. But they are the wise souls of the world. They are really here to see where things can be done better, how people can simplify their life, streamline processes. And then we have the reflectors. They only make up 1% of the population, and they are basically the mirrors of the world. They're always constantly mirroring back other people's energy. So this is always the first place to start, because not only does it give you a description of who you are, but it shows you how you're here to use your physical energy, which is so important as a mother. And so important for our kids to be using their energy in the right way as well. That physical energy to stop burnout, be your healthiest, feel most energized.
Yeah, just knowing that is so helpful. And like for you, like for me, so you and I have done a reading before because I heard about human design and it was one of those things like I've known about astrology for a long time. I love understanding myself. I love understanding other people. So I've always been quite into that. And then I heard about human design and it just is so much more layered. And like you said, like a blueprint. It's not just that, well, this is about you. It's about how you go about doing things. And it just feels good. Like once you start living in that way, that's probably already what you're naturally wanting to do anyway. it just, like you said, like I felt so seen, and it just reaffirmed what came naturally to me anyway. It's almost like that permission slip. So just understanding that for myself was like a huge exhale of feeling seen, and then knowing how to use your energy type, but then also understanding your kids at the same way. So like you said, you can, or like even, partnerships, anything, so that you understand how your energy works together and you're not burning yourself out, like trying to keep up with your kids. Cause I think our kids are similar as well. We've both got generators and manifesting generators.
Mm-hmm.
So their energy type is so different from ours. So how we honor ourselves, but also honor their energy at the same time. So just everyone is working really harmoniously. Like it is so beautiful when you put it into practice. Like it's such a game changer, and you can apply it to pretty much everything.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, exactly like you say, every family is so different and every family dynamic is so unique. And when we understand that about our family, with this whole like conscious motherhood, movement, we want to be able to parent our kids in a way that, they love themselves. But sometimes we don't know where we're actually unconsciously conditioning them. And it comes down to that energy as well. If we're an energy being like a generator or a manifesting generator, we can be conditioning our, non-energy being kids to continuously go, go, go. And that's damaging for their health as they grow up because they're exhausted all the time, or vice versa.
Yeah.
We're non-energy being parents. So us, resting and relaxing, can stop our high energy needs kids from actually using their energy. So it really is about that awareness, and it's super powerful actually just knowing. And that can be, enough, is just that awareness as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's just like, well, it's okay that you need to do this and I need to do this. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with either of us. Yeah, we have such a full spread in my house. So I'm a manifestor. My boys are, one is a generator, one is a manifesting generator. My husband's a projector and my stepdaughter is a projector. So all of our energies just work so differently, but just understanding like, okay, these two are resting because they're done. These two are going stir crazy. I need to put them on the trampoline because they need to burn some energy now. Like just having that awareness makes everything work so much smoothly in our house. And then the other parts, like once you get into the profiles and things like that, like I just love how many layers there are to it, because I think, someone who is a naysayer of, even like astrology or things like this, and I'm like, oh, well, I know two people who are both these and they're completely different. So it's like, we might express things differently, but then of course, like you said, humans are like onions. There are so many different layers. So yeah, the way they express it might be differently because of all the other parts of their chart. Like, I know we won't go into all of that today, and you can do a very in-depth reading for people about that if they want to get more details. But yeah, this is just really the tip of the iceberg. And even just having that awareness is so helpful. But once you start getting into it a little bit deeper, like I'm still like, you and I probably did a reading over a year ago, I would say. And I'm like still going back and looking to it and like just slowly starting to understand more and more about each of us, because like it just keeps going. And the more you apply it, the more, you have that sort of awareness, but the more you get out of it too. It's really cool.
Absolutely. And I'm the same for my children and myself. I'm constantly going back to my chart or constantly going back to my children's chart, because things do change as our children get older. Something that may have been relevant back then may not be relevant now, but something that may not have been, it could be different, especially as our kids are growing. They're evolving, and different parts of their chart are showing up. And for one thing in particular, like there's this identity center within the human design system, and it's one of the energy centers. And if it's colored in or defined, it means that you hold consistent energy there. If it's not, you're kind of taking in identities from people around you. So when we're looking at our kids going through that stage of teenagehood, and their child is trialing on different identities, that's going to freak a parent out. Where if you understand that that's part of their process, you can go, okay, that's, I don't have to step in here. She needs to be trialing on all of the different things. And, 1 week she may be gothic, 1 week she may be, like a girly girl, but that's part of her process in finding her identity. So, it is definitely, there's different relevance at different points of our children's life. So it's always going to be helpful and supportive.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, as they get older, it just gets different, doesn't it? Different things start to come through, and yeah, it's not necessarily easier as they get older, but it changes. Yeah, and again, it just comes back to that awareness, like you said. You don't need to freak out. You can just be like, this is a part of their process, and you can save both of your energies by not freaking out. You let them be who they are, so they feel seen, and you don't have to worry yourself either. Like yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, especially after my first son, and I have been a single parent for 2 years. However, I pretty much did parenting on my own for majority of it. I was very anxiously attached to my kids. I didn't want them hurting themselves because all of the responsibility came down to me. So when I understood they have a profile 3-5, both of them, and this profile very much is about experimenting with life, having to learn the lesson through experience. So I was always like, don't do that, you're going to hurt yourself. But now I'm like, okay, that's part of your process. It doesn't matter how many times I say, don't do that dangerous thing. You have to do it to learn the lesson. And it's less exhausting for me because I know they're not going to listen to me anyway. So that was that was a way I could kind of step back and just go, all right, that's who they are. That's what they need to learn in life. And go on, off you go, learn your lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I do have to, I have a 3-5 as well. And yeah, just things like that. Yeah. So that's getting into the profiles, which are, so cool as well. Those are really insightful. I know there's so many different combinations of those. Yeah. So I've spoken a little bit about my experience with a reading from you. We did a family reading, which was, I highly recommend to anyone if you just want to understand yourself and your other family members a little bit better. But yeah, what else are you offering for moms? Because what I love about your business is that you've looked at human design and you see how it can benefit mothers so much. And you've really taken on that space. And even just like, if someone's not ready to book in a reading or anything, just following your Instagram, like you give so much insight specifically for mothers, like for yourself, how to take care of yourself, but also how to parent your children in a way that honors both of you. So yeah, what other things are you offering at the moment?
Well, I am very much about that, that perspective of honoring the mother as well in that process, because quite often we want to know all of these things about our children and, that's all well and good, but we have to understand ourselves first and we have to put ourselves first at some point. And I always use that intention. And that's why I always recommend a family reading, is because you're honoring yourself in that as well. And I always start the reading with the mum because, we're putting the mum first, like go and read yours first before you dive into your kids, because, you have to put yourself first. But so I do family readings, which is what is currently is my most popular offering at the moment, is the family readings, because, you find out so much about your family. I also offer individual readings. I have a free kids activity book, which is how you can direct your kids' energy based on their design. And I've recently just moved into the space of helping mums grow their online businesses at home. So I know so many women want to be able to stay at home with their kids. They also want to be able to grow a business and contribute to the family and or earn their own money. Financial independence, for me being a single mum, it's so important. So I really looked at human design and how we can apply that to our day-to-day life, how we can still presently parent as well as growing a business, and really just encouraging people to recognize that you don't have to have one or the other. You can have both. So I really like to look at the whole perspective of being a mum, business, self-care, self-awareness, as well as raising our kids in that way. So yeah, I do family readings, business readings, and individual readings. I am currently working on a self-paced kind of motherhood Bible, I guess you could say, which is a PDF where you can just basically do the reading for yourself. But obviously you don't get that personal touch of, me kind of looking at where your family may be impacting each other. However, it's, a lower cost, and it's something that you can print out yourself and have on your, coffee table, or have printed somewhere where you can always go back to. So I like to have a lot of options for people, but also, like you said, I try and provide a lot of information on my Instagram because I believe, I'm so passionate about it. I just believe it needs to be in every family. Like, it's so helpful and it makes your life so much easier.
so much easier. And I feel like a lot of people still haven't heard of it. Like I only heard about it in the past couple of years. And it was just like, wait, how have I missed this? This is so eye-opening. And just, yeah, I mean, obviously you've heard me speak about how much I love it. And we could keep talking about this for ages because it is just so interesting and layered, like we've discussed.
And
I think it's really, sorry, go ahead.
And I think, like you said, sometimes with astrology, and it's the same for me, human design incorporates astrology into it, but I find astrology really hard to digest, I think. And a lot of people do, so they don't, and they think it's a bit too spiritual. And when I came into human design, I was, very much spiritual, but I found that the way it was explained wasn't practical. For mums and kids, we need it to be practical. We need to be like, well, how can I apply this to my day-to-day life? This needs to be easy for me because I got enough going on. So that's the way I like to deliver human design so that people can understand it and go, okay, this is how I can apply it to my day-to-day life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love how you're going into the business space for moms too, because I feel like that's part of that transition when you become a mother. Like, I don't know what you were doing before you became a mother, but I was working in the corporate space. And I just remember thinking like, getting ready to go on maternity leave and thinking, yep, I'll go on my maternity leave. But then of course I'm going to go back full time. Like, what else would I be doing with my time? Because you just don't, you don't know until you know. And then I had my baby and I was like, oh, I'm never going back full time. Like, and I know that's very much a privilege, but your needs change. However, we still need to be able to contribute to the family and, be independent as well from a financial perspective. So I love that you're incorporating how women can have businesses at home, raising their children in a way that actually honors, their own energy type as well. And just how it all works together so holistically. I think that it's just going to help so many moms have that freedom and that lifestyle that they really want in an individualized way. Because I think we both know there's so many people on the internet telling you have to do it like this, and this is the only way. And yeah, I just love that about human design from a work perspective. I think for both of us as manifestors, like, we probably see a lot of direction from generators about, consistency and things like that. And that's amazing. But we will burn ourselves out so quick doing that and just probably throw in the towel. So I love what you're bringing to this space for moms. I think it's going to help so many people.
Absolutely. And I think from the business perspective is mums really do think they have to have one or the other. And a lot of mums will give up because they say, this is the way that you should do business, where what I focus on specifically in, business readings and some of my business products is that consistency looks different for everyone. You hear so much about that in the online space. You got to show up consistently if you want to see results. But consistency for us looks completely different than consistency for a generator. And there's a few things in our chart that show what consistency looks like for a mother. And I always look at, I look at their chart, I look at their phase of motherhood, I look at their goals, and I say, we get to create a structure that feels good for you, that feels consistent for you, so you can show up. And when we actually show up in that way, that is when we become most magnetic, because things start to become easier. You're calling in those soul clients and you're actually making money easier than you were when you're pushing and forcing and doing the things that you should be doing. So it is possible. Yeah. And I think mums need to know that, because so many of us don't want to leave our kids. So many of us, and that's why I created it, because there was like no way I was leaving my kids. There was no way I wasn't staying at home with my kids. So yeah, and like you were saying, you were in corporate before. I was a chef before, so like there was no way I could go back. There was no way I could go back to chefing with 2 kids, So I know so many mums want that, and I think they just need to recognize like it is so possible to do.
Yeah, and in a way that honors where they are. Just think, it's so cool. I love that you're doing that. Just sort of top line. So if anyone's looked up their chart or they know what their energy type is, what's one piece of advice or like one thing that you would want to share for each energy type, like as a mother?
As a mother, for generators, I would always say your highest need is to prioritize joy. You need to have joy in your life. Otherwise, you're going to feel burnt out. You're not going to be able to, show up in motherhood as you should. For manifesting generators, recognizing that you move fast and not seeing it as a flaw, not seeing it as something that, not seeing that not looking at yourself as needing to slow down. That's how you're here to show up. Manifestors, we need freedom. We need that freedom. We need freedom in every area of our life. projectors, they're one of my favorite types. They're a really, really beautiful energy type, and they need a lot of rest, and to not feel guilty about resting. And that is so important in motherhood, because a lot of projectors have grown up feeling guilty for rest. And then reflectors need a sanctuary. They need a place where they can retreat, and they really need to prioritize time away from other people. They're completely open in their chart, which may not make sense, but it means that they take on a lot of energy from the outside world. So they need a sanctuary. They need to be able to retreat somewhere. If they're not getting that, they're going to feel overwhelmed. So that would be like the highest need for each of the types, I would say.
That's so helpful. I think just even understanding that, and then figuring out how to prioritize that in motherhood. But that's what I mean. You give so many great tips for things like that on your Instagram, which is Mothering by Design, right? If anyone wants to go follow you, so they can follow along with the journey and get all the beautiful insights that you share so regularly. I love keeping up with everything you post, because it does just give those bits of information. Oh, okay, this is how I can bring freedom into my life as a manifesting mother. Because it looks like, these things look different in the season of motherhood, and each season of motherhood that you're in, freedom when you have little kids is hard to come by. But if you learn how to prioritize it, and that it needs to be a priority for you, you can create a lot more peace in your life, I find. Before we sort of wrap up, I want to ask 3 final questions that I asked to everyone. So I'm excited to hear your answers. What's one piece of advice you would go back and give yourself in your first pregnancy?
Well, interesting one. To trust myself more. Absolutely. To trust myself more, and, really not put your trust in people outside of you, and really just, trust myself and everything that I knew to be true, basically. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. I feel like that will probably resonate with a lot of moms, because that is definitely a journey that you go on. Like we said, there was always a lot of comparison, not always, but for a lot of women. And then you find your way back to trusting yourself again, which is, such an important journey. I'm glad you said that. What is one piece of advice you give yourself as a new mom?
Another interesting one. As a new mom, I would say, again, trust yourself, because again, with that comparisonitis, we outsource so much, and there's so much information out there. And I've recently just seen my sister have a baby, and you don't realize how much you're outsourcing, or how much information is out there, and how overwhelming it is. And again, that human design helps you to trust yourself even more so, accessing your own emotional authority, your own authority and your own intuition. But trust is massive as a mom. And when you learn to trust yourself, so much becomes clearer.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then what is one thing our listeners can do today to improve their well-being?
Find out their human design.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even
100%.
Even if it's just doing your free chart and understanding your energy type, that is how you thrive. That is how you're here to show up in the world. If you're out of alignment with that, you're not going to be feeling great. You're not going to be feeling energized. You're not going to be feeling fulfilled or satisfied. So just do the free version at least, and you will find so much more clarity in who you are, and you'll find so much more peace in your body for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's just, that one part, because I think, like we talked about, there's so many layers to human design. It can be kind of overwhelming at first. But I think if you just focus on one thing at a time and see if that resonates, see how you can start to apply that, then slowly over time, you can start to look into the other parts of it and see, how those feel, see how you can apply those. Because one thing I keep hearing about human design is it's a living practice. It's something that's meant to be lived and experimented with. So it's not something you need to just get your chart, read all of it, and then cool, tick, you're done. It's it's an ever evolving practice as you get to know yourself more.
Absolutely. And that's what I always say to people. It's meant to be lived. It's not meant to be studied. It's not meant to be researched. I mean, of course, you want to be able to do that, but it is meant to be lived. You would know this every day. You're living this experience with your kids and you're learning something different. You're uncovering something new about yourself, your kids. And it is a process. It's not like it's completely easy. You just do this reading and, you find out everything. It is a process and it needs to be lived. And that's how you gain the best results from it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I feel like you have given our listeners so much juicy information to take in. And then, hopefully if you don't know your chart, go look that up as we talked about. I'll put that link in the show notes for you. Where can we find you? So we've mentioned your Instagram. Where can we find all your other beautiful offers, or is that the best place?
That's the best place. I am constantly sharing links on my Instagram. I have my link tree and all my links in my bio on my Instagram. So you can find me over at mothering.bydesign. And that is the best place. And even if you're new to human design, you're not new to human design, there's so much information and resources there, free resources that will help you understand your kids, yourself, and really just get you started with human design and, help you feel validated and seen like we both did.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sam. I hope you keep doing this beautiful work for such a long time. I know you help so many moms in such a unique way. And I just love it. So thank you for being here today and spending this time with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
No worries. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you found inspiration and empowerment in this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd be so grateful if you could share it with another mom who could use a little extra support or encouragement. By sharing, you're helping us build a community of strong, empowered mamas who are thriving in motherhood together. If you have a moment, please leave a quick review and rating. It really helps more moms like you find the show and feel supported on their journey. For more simple and transformative practices, come connect with me on Instagram at mama_time_yoga. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit follow so you never miss an episode. And until next time, take care of yourself, mama. You've got this.